Hey everyone! ChatGP Taylor aka Taylor here. Welcome back to the channel. Today's video will be something a little bit different. As some of you may remember, my very first video on this channel is a My Way video showing how I wanted Disventure Camp All Stars to play out. Now, if you haven't seen that video yet, then I highly encourage you to check out that video first before watching this one because it goes into a lot of detail that I might not cover here. But if you have watched it, then you're in the right place. Now that Disventure Camp All Stars has come to an end, I think it's a good time for me to look back at my Way video and see how close my desired season was to the actual canon season. I'm primarily going to look at how similar the elimination orders are to each other, but I'm also going to talk a bit about the storylines that I included in my video and whether or not they were included in the actual season. And with that, let's get started. Before I begin, make sure to like and subscribe if this video is to your liking, and make sure to comment down below if there's anything that you would like to see going forward. Let's get this started by talking about the first boot. In my video, I pictured Miriam being voted out first due to her older age and her winner status. Now, since Miriam ended up being the third boot, I think I was pretty close with my prediction. And I was correct in saying that Miriam would be the first one booted from the yellow team. I knew that Miriam wouldn't last long since her story was pretty much finished by the end of season 1, but I didn't expect her to go out with such fury. She definitely stirred up drama in canon by trying to throw Alec under the bus, which I didn't anticipate. But it's definitely fitting for her character, and I'm glad that I was wrong on that particular aspect. As for the second boot, I thought it would be James. And considering that James was voted out first in canon, I think I made a pretty good prediction. I was also correct in guessing that James would be the first person eliminated from the pink team. Once Aiden warned James in episode 1 about not doing anything crazy on his team, I knew that James wasn't going to last long. However, I didn't think it would take one episode for him to be voted out. And I was definitely wrong about how it would happen. I thought James would get overambitious and make a poor strategic move, because it's well known that James isn't very good at strategy. But as it turns out, he was voted out because Jake got paranoid about Tom and Aiden. Sad way to see him go, but it didn't surprise me. For the third boot, I originally thought it would be Ashley. And this is where my prediction sort of went off the rails. Ashley ended up getting 11th in canon, so I was pretty far off. But in my defense, there wasn't much for me to go off of. I don't think Jake and Ashley ever interacted in season 1, so I don't think I could have realistically predicted that they would have been so close in this season. I suppose I could have rationalized that Ashley had a reason to try and win since her family lost part of their farm in a fire, but I just didn't think of that when I made the video. I'll chalk this one up as a loss. And it's even more embarrassing considering that if we look at the previous versions for Disventure Camp All Stars that Jared posted, Ashley was the winner for the first 3 versions, so I would have been really wrong if any of those versions ended up happening. So I guess I got lucky here. Now, for the fourth boot. I originally had it being Connor. Considering that Connor was originally the 5th one booted from the canon season, I don't think I was that far off. And I was correct in guessing that Connor would be the second camper eliminated from the yellow team. The circumstances surrounding the elimination also weren't too different from my prediction, since Connor did end up breaking away from Rhea, at least for the time being. But I really didn't think that Rhea and Connor would break up so quickly in canon. And to be completely transparent, I did not think that Connor would return to the game in episode 11. I thought his plot of realizing that Rhea couldn't be saved ended pretty concisely by the time episode 6 ended. But I guess I was wrong on that one too. But before I get to my 5th boot, I want to comment on one more thing that I was wrong about. In the My Way video, I thought the teams would eventually be condensed from 3 to 2. But in canon, they stuck with the 3-team system for the entirety of the pre-merge, which surprised me. I thought that at some point the teams would need to be condensed in order to allow for some key pre-merge interactions to occur, such as Alec and Fiore as well as Jake and Tom. But I guess we had to wait until later on to get those interactions. Oh well. As for my 5th boot, I thought that it would be Rhea. I think this is probably my worst prediction yet since according to the previous versions of All Stars, the lowest that Rhea was supposed to place was 4th, and she ended up winning the season in the end. But to be fair, I don't think I could have predicted that Rhea would make it far. After all, Rhea went into the season as an antagonist, got 2nd place in her original season, and her biggest connection was with someone whose plot could have gotten wrapped up in the pre-merge. Back then, I thought that a lot would have to go right for Rhea to make it far. And as it turns out, all she needed was the villains alliance, Ali flipping to save her, Connor and Jake making a bad move at the final 6, and 2 immunity wins in order to make it to the end. I'm not upset with my prediction, and the show definitely took Rhea's character in a different direction than I thought they would. I guess I just thought differently. For the 6th boot, I thought it would be Fiore. This was actually one that I got on the nose, since Fiore was also the 6th boot in the canon season. I just thought that Fiore's villainous reputation would be too dangerous for the other campers to want to keep her around. However, what I didn't predict was that Fiore would be eliminated before her and Alec could rebuild their partnership from season 1. I really thought that we would have seen more scenes of Alec and Fiore interacting and moving past the events of episode 12 of season 1. But we ended up getting some of those scenes near the end of the season, so I guess it all worked out in the end. For the 7th boot, I thought it would be Aiden. I was pretty incorrect with this prediction since Aiden ended up getting 7th place, rather than being the 7th boot. I knew that the pseudo-triangle between Tom, Jake, and Aiden would be a main plot, but I didn't think that all 3 of them would make it to the merge due to all the other possible plot lines that could have also gotten some screen time. So, I thought that one of them would be eliminated pre-merge, and I guessed that it would be Aiden, since Tom and Jake are really the ones that needed to sort out their problems. And it made a bit of sense to me. Aiden made it far in his first season, his boyfriend was already eliminated, and the person who he had the most beef with was recently voted out. So I thought Aiden was going to leave sooner rather than later, but I guess I underestimated the power of the Tom-Jake plot. For the 8th boot, I thought it would be Lake. This was also a pretty bad prediction since Lake was the 2nd boot in Canon. In hindsight, I really should have put Lake as an early boot. Now that I think about it, Lake already had her plot in season 2 when she broke free from her parents and became her own person. So she didn't really need to make it far in the All-Star season. I think I was just blinded by my opinion of Lake that I didn't want to consider the possibility of her being an early boot. But to be fair, I think the series of events that led to Lake being voted out could have been avoided. Lake told Ellie during the ceremony that she hoped Ellie would understand why she couldn't vote Aiden out. By this phrasing, I don't think Lake was inherently stopping Ellie, Gabby, and Tess from voting out Aiden. Lake just didn't want to be a part of it. Ellie could have easily just gotten Gabby and Tess to help her vote out Aiden by a vote of 3 to 2 to 1, but instead she took the high road and broke up her all-female alliance shortly after it was formed, which I never would have been able to predict. So even though I was really wrong, I don't think I could have gotten it correct considering the events that transpired. And for the final pre-merge boot, I thought it would be Alec. This was also a pretty bad prediction since Alec was always supposed to make it to the top 6, according to the previous elimination orders. I think the mistake I made with Alec was the same mistake I made with Rhea. Because he was previously an antagonist, made it far in his previous season, and had a close ally who was likely going to be a pre-merge boot, I thought that he wasn't going to make it too far in this season. Little did I know that the villain's alliance, his partnership with Rhea, and friendship with Connor would give him something to do throughout the first half of the merge. To be honest, I was happy that Alec made it far in the game, and I wouldn't have been too upset if he found a way to win. I just didn't think it would happen, leading to my incorrect prediction. Oh well. I can't win them all. Before we continue with the merge eliminations, I want to talk about my prediction for who would win the comeback competition. At the time that I made my way video, I didn't know that an eliminated camper would get an opportunity to return to the game. I just thought it was a fun idea to implement into the video. But luckily, a comeback competition was included in the Canon season, so at least I got that right. However, I didn't predict the outcome of the challenge correctly. I thought that Lake would be the one to win it, and I was probably still clouded by my positive opinion of Lake when I made that decision. However, Lake did actually win the comeback competition in the first 2 versions of the All Stars elimination order, so that's nice. But I don't think I ever would have predicted Connor to return, so I was taking a loss on this one no matter what. But back to the eliminations. In this spot, I had Jake being eliminated in 10th place. Now, this may have been far off his Canon placement of 2nd place, but in the first 3 versions of the season, Jake was supposed to be eliminated in 11th, so my train of thought wasn't too inaccurate. I thought that the Tom and Jake plot would have gotten wrapped up by this point, which would have allowed either Tom or Jake to get eliminated. But in Canon, they didn't really wrap it up by this point, and Tom was eliminated instead of Jake. Whoops. I'll count this as a loss, but it's not a horrible loss. Following this, I had Ellie as the 9th place finisher. This prediction is sort of off considering that Ellie ended up being a pre-merge boot rather than a merge boot. But I generally got Ellie's role in the season correct. I thought Ellie would be a decent pre-merge antagonist, but get taken out at the merge by an alliance that saw her as a threat. And I thought we were going to see her take a more direct role in adding drama to the Tom and Jake drama, which is why I had her be responsible for Jake's elimination in my version of the season. I'm a bit surprised that the plan was always for her to be a pre-merge boot. However, this elimination also sparked Gabby's desire to plan more villainously, which I did get correct in my video. Up next, I had Lake getting 8th place. Again, this is pretty bad considering that Lake ended up getting 17th place in the Canon season. However, it's worth noting that in the first 2 versions of the All Stars elimination order, Lake was going to get 7th place, which is a lot closer than 17th place. I guess I thought that there was more to explore with Lake's character than there actually was. I don't think Lake's character could have been significantly ruined by more screen time, but I guess having her remain pretty much the same as she was at the end of Season 2 is still a good result. Following this, I predicted that Ali would get 7th place. This isn't too bad since it seems like with the exception of the first version of the elimination order, Ali was always supposed to be a finalist. I always felt like one camper from the poly trio would end up in the finals, and I ultimately chose Tess for that role in my prediction instead of Ali, but I can see why Ali was chosen as well. Part of the reason why I had Ali make it this far is because I thought that Ali and Hunter's conflicts and subsequent resolutions would take up more of the season. But instead, we got Hunter being eliminated by episode 5, Ali spending several episodes talking about her online haters and changing because of them, and the couple resolving their issues in the finale. Whoops. Speaking of Hunter, that My Way video that I made had him finish in 6th place. Truthfully, I didn't really think that Hunter would make it that far considering he got 4th place in season 2, but I pushed those thoughts aside because I really thought that he and Ali would get more of a focus in this season due to how foreshadowed their conflicts were in the opening theme of the season and in episode 1. Although I guess it was for the best, since I don't know if Ali's story of trying, failing, and overcompensating for her haters' opinions of her would have happened if Hunter made it far into the game. Don't get me wrong, I think Ali's main plot in All Stars could have been handled better, but I think it was the right direction to take Ali's character, especially since she didn't have much of a story in season 2 aside from being in the poly trio. Moving on to the next placement, I predicted Gret to get 5th place. And this is actually one of the few placements that I got correct. However, the circumstances under which she was eliminated are quite different. In my video, I predicted that even though Gret and Yule's relationship would be a bit unhealthy, they would still be able to play the roles of puppet masters throughout the season, ending with Yule betraying Gret and declaring that he never really loved her. But in canon, Gret was able to dump Yule earlier on, and then control the final 7 and final 6 eliminations before being betrayed at the final 5 by Ali. Given the different contexts, I'm less content with Gret's canon elimination since I really feel like the build-up of Gret controlling some late-game eliminations was just wasted by having her get betrayed at the final 5. This does bring up a debate that I've seen throughout the community regarding whether or not it's worth it to include a lot of unpredictability in the plot at the cost of some of the storylines. And personally, if I have to choose between the two, I'd rather keep the good storylines. In conclusion, I was okay with Gret getting 5th if it served as the last straw to help her dump Yule, but getting 5th after controlling the previous 2 eliminations isn't something that I could have predicted nor wanted. And for the final elimination before the finale, I predicted Gabby to get 4th place. Now, this is a few places off from her canonical 8th place finish, but I don't think I made a mistake by putting her this high. Before the season, I saw people in the community projecting her to either be eliminated early or make it to the end of the game, so I don't think my prediction was that different from the general consensus of the community at the time. Now I did correctly predict Gabby getting emotional after Ellie's elimination and voting with the villains out of retaliation. However, one thing that I didn't really predict was Gabby and Gret becoming genuine friends. Don't get me wrong, I'm glad that the two of them are genuinely friends. I just didn't think it would happen. This is definitely one instance where I'm glad to be wrong. And with that, we are now in the final 3. Clearly all 3 of the campers that I predicted to become finalists did not in fact become finalists. However, I think I got the structure of the final 3 correct. In canon, the final 3 consisted of 1 member of the Tom-Jake plot, 1 member of the poly trio, and 1 of the main villains of the season. And considering that my prediction for the final 3 was Tom, Tess, and Yule, I think I followed the canon structure of the finale pretty well. I just chose the wrong representative for each group. Oh well. And to kick off my final 3 review, I predicted Tom to get 3rd place in my first video. Honestly, this is probably my most embarrassing prediction. Not necessarily because of the difference between my prediction and his canon placement, but because of the reasoning behind him making it this far in my prediction. To be completely transparent, I had no clue what to do with him after Jake was voted out, but I also felt like someone from the Tom-Jake plotline had to make it to the finals, so I kind of just dragged him along to the end. In hindsight, it might have been better to have Jake in the finals instead of Tom, since then I could at least rationalize it by saying that I had 1 camper from each starting team in the final 3. But instead, I just dragged Tom to the finale with the justification that he would use this opportunity to show more of the skills that he learned in spy training. And canonically, we didn't get much of that either. So this one was a complete bust. Moving on to the penultimate placement for this video, I had Yule taking 2nd place in my predictions. Canonically, Yule got 9th place, so I was pretty far off. However, I also envisioned Yule having a bigger role in the season than he actually did, so I think my prediction makes sense considering my expectations for Yule. Going into the season, I genuinely thought that Yule was going to be the main antagonist for the season. Even though Yule is mostly known for his cruel comments towards pretty much everyone, he did show in season 2 that he was capable of being strategic. This is mainly through his quickness to form a majority alliance on his team with Hunter, Tess, and Ali, as well as having the foresight to realize that he and James would likely end up in a tie with Lake and Aiden in episode 5. Yes, it may seem like the bare minimum for a strategist, but when you're surrounded by someone like James, anything you do will seem decently strategic. And when you add this to his teased relationship with Gret, I thought that the stage was set for Yule to make a deep run as a truly despicable antagonist. But instead, we just got him being abusive towards Gret for half a season. Damn. And finally, for the winner. In my video, I pitched Tess as the winner of the season. And I know that Tess didn't make the best impression in the Canon season due to her role as a therapist, but I still think that Tess would have been a good winner for the All-Star season. Back when I made the video, I thought that there was a lot to explore with Tessa's backstory and her transformation between seasons. And when adding this to the fact that she only got 8th place in Season 2, I thought that there was a lot of potential for her to make a deep run in the All-Stars season. And considering that Tess made it to the top 2 in the first version of the All-Stars elimination order, I feel like Odd Nation Cartoons saw the potential as well. Unfortunately, this potential was let go as Tess was instead given the role of a therapist, leaving parts of the community to clown on her for her strategic inactivity. So to recap, how close was the My Way video to the Canon season? In general, it wasn't that close. I got a few eliminations right on the nose, such as Fiore and Gret. And I was quite close with a few others, such as Miriam, James, and Connor. However, I also had some really bad guesses, such as putting Rhea as a pre-merge boot and having Tess as the winner. But of course, only the first episode of Season 3 was publicly released when I made the My Way video. I had to make a few assumptions and guesses with the plot lines that would be used in the season. Some plotlines like the Tom and Jake conflict as well as Gabby seeking revenge for Ellie were ones that I got correct. But other guesses such as Tessa's plot and Hunter's plot were horrible misses by me. But at the end of the day, that's the beauty of predictions. I was never going to get everything correct, and I think that makes the correct predictions feel even better. I don't regret making that video, and I'll probably make more predictions in the future when Season 4 of Disventure Camp comes around. And that about does it for this video. What do you think of my theory? Do you agree with my thought process? Do you disagree? How did you think the season would play out? Either way, please let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like the video, click subscribe if you really like the video, and for some ending words of wisdom. Make sure to brush up on your trivia knowledge. Or else you could find yourself getting crushed in a trivia competition by a divorced librarian. Thank you, and farewell.